The assembly chamber of the Zenith Institute smelled faintly of ozone and polished alloys. Rows of alien cadets filled the amphitheater, chittering, humming, and whispering in their strange tongues, all gathered for one of the most anticipated traditions of the year, the companion ceremony. Every cadet was required to bring a pet, a harmless, docile creature that would accompany them through their studies, teaching patience, care, and responsibility. The chamber glowed with colors as students presented their choices. A Cyrix cadet held up a translucent orb creature that pulsed with gentle light. Applause rippled. A Velari carried a moss beast the size of a loaf of bread, its leafy fur exhaling soft pheromones. Admiration hummed. One insectoid proudly displayed a tiny, buzzing glowwing, harmless as a dust mote. Excellent examples, Instructor Valor announced, his voice cold and sharp as metal. His slit-pupilled eyes scanned the rows. Creatures of peace, harmless, non-threatening. This, he gestured with a long claw, is how one demonstrates responsibility. We do not invite predators into halls of learning. The chamber doors hissed open. Every eye turned. Cadet Elias Ver stepped inside, his uniform crisp, his posture casual. He walked with the kind of relaxed confidence that seemed out of place among the rigid cadets. But what froze the hall into silence wasn't Elias himself. It was the two cubs padding at his side. They were sleek, muscular things, black fur dappled with faint silver streaks. Their golden eyes glowed with feral light. Their sharp teeth flashed as they yawned. Claws clicked softly against the floor. And yet, they didn't snarl, didn't lunge. They brushed against Elias like loyal hounds. One even rumbling with a sound alien students mistook for growling, but was, in fact, a purr. The silence shattered. "Predators!" hissed a Velari. "Dangerous enemies," a Cyrix chirped, scrambling backward. One insectoid cadet fainted outright. Elias only smiled, resting a hand on one cub's head. "Relax," he said, his voice calm, steady. "They're just cubs." "Cubs?" Instructor Valor's voice rose, metallic and sharp. He strode forward, his long robe swishing. "This is an insult to the Institute. Did you not hear the rule? Companions must be harmless. These beasts," he jabbed a claw toward the cubs, "are apex predators!" Elias tilted his head, unbothered. "On Earth, yes. Apex predators. Which makes them perfect companions." The hall erupted in protests. Valor's eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself, human." Elias crouched, scratching one cub under the jaw. The animal leaned into his hand, eyes closing with contentment. The other curled around his boots protectively. "On Earth, predators don't just survive, they thrive. And we survived alongside them. We learned respect, not fear. These cubs, Naira and Cade, they're not threats, they're family." Laughter burst from a reptilian student. "Family? With killers?" Elias met his gaze evenly. "Every species here brings something harmless because you're afraid of danger. Humans? We grew up surrounded by it. We didn't hide from predators. We learned to raise them, trust them, fight beside them if needed. That's why I brought these two." The cubs sat at perfect attention, golden eyes scanning the hall. Valor bared sharp teeth. "Arrogance! This will not stand. You endanger every cadet in this hall." "Funny," Elias said softly. "They look calmer than half the students right now." Gasps swept the crowd. The human smile only deepened. For a long moment, Valor glared, weighing the risk, the politics, the spectacle. Finally, he hissed. "Very well. You have until the end of the term to prove they are not a threat. One slip, one scratch, and you will be expelled. Do you understand, human?" Elias straightened, meeting his gaze without flinching. Crystal clear. He clicked his tongue. Both cubs rose, padding at his side like shadows. As he passed the rows of alien cadets, still whispering, still wide-eyed, Elias said quietly, just loud enough for them to hear, "Where I'm from, trust isn't given to the harmless. It's earned from the dangerous. The chamber fell silent again, but this time, it wasn't just fear that hung in the air. It was curiosity. The days after the companion ceremony were heavy with stares. Whispers followed Elias wherever he walked, echoing in a dozen alien dialects. Some were frightened murmurs, others sharp and mocking, but all carried the same sentiment. The human is reckless, and his pets are monsters. Naira and Cade trotted beside him through the Institute's polished corridors, tails flicking, eyes glowing faintly gold. Their sleek frames moved like liquid shadows, but every time their claws clicked against the alloy floors, other cadets flinched. During the morning lectures, alien students made wide semicircles around Elias's desk. Instructors rarely said anything, though the unease was palpable. The cubs lay quietly at his feet, heads resting on paws, occasionally stretching or flicking ears toward the sound. To Elias, their calm presence was grounding. To everyone else, it was like sitting beside unexploded ordnance. At lunch in the mess hall, a Sidix cadet hissed when Naira padded too close. "They smell of blood," the cadet accused, mandibles clicking. "Why are such creatures allowed near our food?" Elias calmly took his seat, sliding a tray across to the cubs. It contained carefully prepared rations from the Institute's bio-kitchens, protein-rich synth meat strips. Kate immediately began chewing, purring softly. "They eat cleaner than most humans," Elias replied. "Relax." The Sidix recoiled, antennae twitching. "Relax," he says, "while feeding killers in public." "Funny thing about killers," Elias said between bites of his own meal. "They know the difference between threat and family." The remark traveled down the tables like wildfire, leaving students buzzing with a mix of intrigue and outrage. 2 days later, Instructor Valor made his move. The lecture hall filled with the susurrus of alien voices as cadets filed in. Elias sat casually in the back, Nira curled under his desk. Picade sprawled and beside his chair. Valor entered in a sweep of robes, his claws clicking against the podium. His reptilian face twisted into a humorless smile. "Today," he announced, "we discuss the dangers of cultural arrogance." His slit pupils locked on Elias. "Some cadets believe their way of life excuses them from wisdom." Murmurs rippled. Everyone knew who the target was. Valor paced the dais. "Consider predators. On most worlds, predators are exterminated or caged. They are threats to peace. They sow chaos. And yet..." His voice grew sharper, slicing through the hall. "One cadet brings predators into a sanctuary of learning. He claims this is responsibility." Dozens of alien eyes turned toward Elias. The cubs stirred faintly, sensing the shift in the room. Elias raised his head slowly. "You want to talk about responsibility?" His voice was even, calm. "I hand-feed these cubs every day. I train them. I teach them boundaries. Tell me, what's more responsible? Raising something fragile and harmless, or guiding something strong enough to kill you?" Gasps. Valor's eyes narrowed. "You endanger everyone here." "Do I?" Elias spread his hands. "Has anyone been hurt? Or are you all just as scared because you assume danger?" The silence was sharp. Nira yawned, flashing gleaming teeth, then laid her head back down. The sound echoed like a growl through the hall. One insectoid cadet stood abruptly, carapace clattering. I request reassignment. I cannot learn in the same hall as predators." Others muttered agreement. Valor seized the moment, his voice like steel. "You see, cadets? Fear corrodes unity. This is why we forbid predators. They poison cooperation." Elias leaned forward, his gaze steady. "No. Fear without understanding corrodes unity. You want proof?" He gestured to the cubs. "Watch." He clicked his tongue once. Naira instantly sat upright, eyes locked on him. A second click. Cade mirrored her posture, tail straight, still as statues. Elias spoke softly. "Down." Both predators sank flat to the floor, unmoving, obedient. Elias looked back at the room. Control isn't about cages. It's about respect. They trust me, so they listen. Tell me, instructor, can your so-called harmless pets do that? A stunned hush blanketed the hall. But Valor's smile was cold. Parlor tricks, he sneered. You think discipline changes nature? Instinct cannot be erased. One day they will slip, and when they do, everyone will see the truth about humans. His words slithered through the room like poison. Elias didn't flinch. Or maybe, he said quietly, one day you'll see the truth about us instead. That night in the dormitory wing, Elias sat cross-legged on the floor, running his fingers through Nira's fur. Cade gnawed softly on a bone substitute, tail flicking contentedly. The tension of the day weighed on him, but his calm never broke. A timid knock sounded on the door. Elias looked up. A young Velari cadet stood there, hesitant. She held her moss beast close, leafy fronts trembling. I saw what you did today, she said nervously. The way they obeyed. Are they really safe? Elias smiled faintly. Safe isn't the right word. They're dangerous, sure. But danger isn't the same as out of control. He stroked Naira's head, earning a low purr. They're loyal. That's something you can't breed into a harmless pet. The Velari bit her lip, then crouched slightly, eyes wide. May I touch one? Naira's ears perked. Elias nodded. Slowly. Let her sniff first. The cadet extended a trembling hand. Naira sniffed, then leaned forward, nudging her palm with a warm nose. The Velari gasped softly, a mix of fear and awe. She accepted you, Elias said quietly. See? Respect, not fear. The Velari's moss beast quivered, but she didn't move away. Instead, her eyes lingered on Naira's golden gaze, as though seeing something she couldn't quite name. When she finally left, Elias leaned back, whispering to the cubs. They don't get it yet, but they will. The cubs' eyes glowed faintly in the dark, as if they understood. The summons came at dawn. Elias was finishing his morning run around the Institute's outer ring when his wristband pulsed with a red directive. Cadet Ver, report immediately to Habitat Dome 3. Attendance are mandatory. Instructor Valor presiding. He slowed, catching his breath, feeling Nira and Cade press against his legs. Their golden eyes gleamed with expectation, as if they already knew. Elias smirked faintly. So, it begins. Habitat Dome 3 was a colossal enclosure, an artificial wilderness used for survival training. Forest canopies stretched toward the false sky, rivers shimmered with refracted light, and mechanical insects buzzed in the air. Rows of cadets sat on elevated benches along the perimeter, watching. Valor stood at the center, claws clasped behind his back, posture regal. His voice carried like a blade. Cadets, today we confront arrogance. The human believes predators can be companions. We will test this claim. Gasps and whispers rippled. Elias stepped forward, calm as ever, chased the cubs padding at his heels. And if I pass your test? He asked. Valor's eyes narrowed. Then you survive another day in this institute, nothing more. Elias chuckled, generous. The test began with simplicity. Valor motioned, and a drone whirred into the dome, projecting a series of shimmering obstacles, floating rings, shifting walls, a simulated cliff. Command your predators, Valor ordered. Without leashes, without force. Prove they obey. Elias crouched, clicking his tongue twice. Naira and Cade sat instantly, muscles taut with focus. He pointed to the first ring. Through. Like liquid shadows they sprinted. Naira leapt gracefully, Cade following, slipping through the ring with ease. Applause broke out among the younger cadets, silenced instantly by Valor's glare. Next, Elias called, gesturing to the wall. Up! The cubs scrambled li suim kukan. Keyborn climbers, scaling the shifting surface, claws digging effortlessly. At the top, they sat waiting, tails twitching, until Elias whistled them down. The dome filled with murmurs. Even skeptics leaned forward, captivated. Valor's jaw tightened. Tricks. Tricks anyone can teach a beast. Let us raise the stakes. He signaled again. The forest canopy shimmered as drones released mechanical constructs, mock creatures, insectoid and swift, programmed to harass. They buzzed low, darting around Nira and Cade, flashing bright lights to agitate them. Gasps echoed when Cade bared teeth, a low growl vibrating the air. Nira's ears flattened, tail lashing. The tension in the dome sharpened. One misstep and chaos would erupt. Ilea stepped forward, voice calm, firm. Eyes on me. Both cubs whipped their gazes back to him, growls dying instantly. He lifted his hand. Sit. They obeyed. The constructs buzzed around uselessly, frustrated. Not a strike, not a lunge. A Belari cadet whispered in awe. They controlled themselves? Elias smiled faintly. Not controlled. Chose. Valor's nostrils flared. His voice dropped into a dangerous hiss. Enough games. He gestured sharply. The drones released a new target. A hulking simulation of a predator from Sephora itself. A massive, fanged beast, scaled and armored, easily 10 times the size of Nira and Cade. Its roar shook the dome. Cadets cried out, some clutching their harmless pets close. Elias's brow furrowed. You're stacking the deck. This is no longer about parlor tricks, Valor declared. This is instinct against instinct. If your cubs are truly loyal, they will resist their nature. The simulation prowled closer, eyes glowing, claws carving the dirt. Nira and Cade crouched, hackles raised, instinct screaming for battle. Elias dropped to one knee, voice firm, steady. Look at me. Nira's gaze flicked toward him, ears twitching. Cade snarled, teeth bared. Easy, Elias whispered. He stretched a hand forward, palm down. Stay. The cubs quivered with pent-up energy, every muscle screaming to strike. The simulated predator lunged away with a roar. Gasps filled the dome, but the cubs didn't move. They trembled, claws digging into the dirt. But their eyes never left Elias. The simulation passed within meters, its holographic maw snapping before fading back into mist. Silence fell like a weight. Elias rose slowly, dusting off his knee. He looked at the rows of stunned cadets, then at Valor. Nature doesn't disappear, he said softly. But loyalty wins against instinct. For the first time, doubt flickered in Valor's eyes. After the test, cadets gathered in hushed clusters outside the dome. Whispers were no longer just fear. They carried admiration. That obedience? Impossible. Maybe humans can tame predators. Or maybe predators tame humans. Elias walked through their murmurs, Nira and Cade striding proudly at his side. One insectoid cadet, who had once demanded reassignment, approached hesitantly. Human, your creatures, they frighten me, but they also impress me. Elias grinned. Good. That means you're paying attention. That night, Valor sat alone in his office, staring into the dark. His claws drummed the desk, restless. He had planned for failure, humiliation, expulsion. Instead, the human had turned the spectacle into triumph. This is not over, Valor muttered, eyes burning. You think loyalty makes you strong, human. I will show the galaxy the price of trusting predators. And in the quiet shadows of the dormitory, Nira and Cade slept curled beside Elias, breathing steady, their golden eyes flickering open only when the night deepened, as if they too sensed the storm yet to come. The alarm began as a low pulse in the walls. At first, Elias thought it was another training drill, another test orchestrated by Valor to undermine him. But then, the red lights ignited across the Institute's corridors, and the pulse rose into a piercing wail. Containment breach detected. Habitat Dome 2 compromised. All cadets report to safe zones immediately. The announcement repeated in several languages, voices overlapping. The hallways filled with panic, alien cadets clutching their harmless companions, scuttling, slithering, or flying toward the reinforced shelters. Elias knelt, fingers brushing through Naira's fur. Both cubs were alert, ears pricked, muscles taut. They smelled danger before any sensor did. "Stay close," Elias murmured. Their golden eyes locked on him, sharp and unblinking. When he reached the central atrium, chaos reigned. Cadets clustered together, some sobbing, others trembling, as their fragile pets clung to them uselessly. The Velari moss beasts shriveled in fear. Glowwings collided against walls, disoriented. In the corner, an insectoid's companion fainted outright, curled into a trembling ball. And then came the sound that silenced the room. A deep, guttural screech that rattled the very air. The dome doors shuddered. Something massive slammed against them from the other side. Metal groaned. A second impact tore through the barrier, shredding alloy like paper. The creature that stepped through was no hologram, no controlled construct. It was a nightmare of Cyphora's wild, an invasive predator that had slipped past the Institute's defenses. Twice the size of a human, armored in jagged plates, its 6 limbs ended in serrated claws. Its mouth split into 4 mandibles, dripping acidic saliva that hissed on the floor. Cadets screamed, stumbling backward. Instructor Baylor appeared at the far end of the chamber, his robe snapping. With his hurried stride, "All cadets to shelters!" he barked. His composure cracked, eyes narrowing in horror at the sight of the beast. "Guards will..." But there were no guards. The predator had struck too deep, too fast. The monster reared back, mandibles clattering. It lunged. Elias moved first. "Naira! Cade!" His voice cut through panic like steel. The cubs surged forward, snarling in perfect unison. Golden eyes blazed as they intercepted the monster mid-charge, one leaping high to claw at its armored neck while the other dove low, slashing at exposed joints. The impact echoed like thunder. The beast screeched, staggering under the assault. The watching cadets froze, not just in fear, but in shock. For the first time, predators were fighting for them. "Elias!" Valor shouted, eyes wide. "Call them back! They'll be slaughtered!" But Elias didn't waver. "They know what they're doing." His voice was calm, steady, every syllable ringing with trust. The cubs darted around the beast with lethal grace, a dance honed by instinct and training. Naira leapt onto its back, teeth sinking into a joint between armor plates. Cade slashed across its legs, forcing the monster off balance. As it sprayed, sizzling into the floor. Elias seized the moment. He sprinted toward a fallen power conduit sparking near the wall, ripped free a length of live cable, and shouted, "Down!" On command, both cubs disengaged, rolling away just as Elias lashed the cable against the beast's exposed joint. Electricity surged through its body. The monster convulsed, shrieking, before collapsing with a thunderous crash. The atrium fell silent. Elias stood in the crackling glow, chest heaving. Naira and Cade flanking him, both bloodied but unbowed, tails lashing with pride. The predator twitched once, then stilled. The cadets stared, stunned. Their harmless companions cowered or clung tighter to them, but Elias's predators stood tall, protectors instead of threats. A Velari cadet whispered, voice trembling with awe. "They saved us." An insectoid clicked softly. They chose to fight for him. The tide of fear shifted into something heavier, something that hummed in the air. Respect. Valor descended the steps, his usual poise cracked wide open. His claws flexed at his sides as he looked from the corpse of the beast to Elias and the cubs. His voice was low, grudging. "You risked everything. Reckless. Foolish. And yet, his eyes narrowed. Without you, half this hall would be dead. Elias wiped a smear of acid from his sleeve, expression unreadable. Funny thing about predators, they don't always follow the script you expect. The cubs leaned against him, their fur bristling, but eyes calm now that the fight was done. Elias crouched, scratching behind Naira's ear as she rumbled with pride. They protected family, Elias said softly. That's what the predators do when you earn their loyalty. The words lingered in the air, undeniable. Later, when the carcass had been hauled away and the atrium sealed for repairs, cadets gathered in hushed circles. They replayed the scene in whispers. The cubs' ferocity, Elias's calm, the way human and predator fought as one. A young insectoid cadet approached Elias hesitantly. Your creatures, they are dangerous, yes. But today, danger saved us. Perhaps. His antennae twitched thoughtfully. Perhaps we have misjudged what safety truly means. Elias smiled faintly. Took you long enough. In his private quarters, Valor sat rigid, staring at his reflection in the polished alloy wall. His claws dug deep grooves into the desk. For years, he had taught that peace was built on safety, on eliminating threats, on caging the dangerous. But tonight, the image of two predator cubs shielding a hall of cadets refused to leave his mind. They cannot be allowed to rewrite the lesson, he muttered, though his voice trembled. I will prove the human wrong. I will show the council. Humans are not saviors. They are a danger greater than any beast. Yet beneath the words lurked doubt, deep and corrosive. And for the first time, Instructor Valor wasn't sure if he feared the predators or the human who smiled beside them. The examination dome was silent, unnaturally so. Rows of alien cadets sat rigid, ears, tendrils, and frills tilted towards the center floor where Arin stood with his 3 apex predator cubs. The overseer's quills rattled against the mic stand, as if the weight of protocol itself pressed down on him. Cadet Arin Vale, the overseer intoned, voice sharp with disapproval. Your creatures are a violation of every clause in the Academy Charter. You were ordered to present harmless companions. What stands before us are predators. Arin straightened, hands calmly resting behind his back. Respectfully, sir, he said, voice steady but carrying across the dome. You asked for loyalty, trainability, and resilience in any companion we trust with our lives. I brought the only species that fulfills all three. Gasps rippled. The cubs, fangs glinting under the dome lights, sat obediently at his side. Not a twitch of aggression, only sharp eyes locked on their human handler. The overseer's frills tightened. They are dangerous. They will not be permitted to... Before he could finish, the klaxon split the air. Emergency alert. The dome's walls flickered with warning glyphs. A projection showed the Academy's outer fields swarmed by unmarked drones, razor-thin, black, moving like a tide of knives. Unknown hostile incursion! Shouted an aide. The cadets panicked. Some bolted. Others froze. Instructors scrambled to rally order. The overseer's voice shook as he called. All combat divisions, deploy! But the drones didn't wait. A panel overhead exploded, shards raining down. 3 drones slipped through, blades spinning toward the cadets. Screams erupted. Arin didn't hesitate. Fenrir, strike! The wolf cub leapt, a silver streak, jaws locking around the first drone, crushing its core with a terrifying efficiency. Sparks sprayed. Nix! Disable! The panther cub bounded up the wall, springing from it with silent precision. Her claws raked through the second drone, splitting it in 2 before it could strike. Sol! Guard! The bear cub planted himself in front of a cluster of panicked cadets, a roar tearing from his throat, deep and primal. The drone's blade glanced off his thick hide. He smashed it flat with a single paw. The dome fell into stunned silence. 3 apex predator cubs had done what armed cadets could not. They neutralized the threat in seconds. The overseer's mandibles clattered, words failing. They obeyed? Arin gave him a cold, tight smile. Obeyed better than most of your cadets. The alarms hadn't stopped. The attack outside grew louder, explosions shaking the dome's structure. Instructors barked fragmented orders, fear tearing discipline apart. Arin turned to his fellow cadets, alien faces wide with uncertainty. "You've trained for theory," he said, voice carrying. "We don't have time for fear. We need action. My companions can lead the charge. Stand with us, or watch this academy fall." The wolf's low growl underlined his words. Something shifted in the air. The cadets, embarrassed at their own paralysis, began to rally. Blades were drawn, energy rifles armed, shields raised. Slowly, they turned toward Arin, not the overseer, for guidance. The overseer hissed, "You have no authority here!" Arin's eyes locked on him, hard as iron. "Authority doesn't matter when survival is on the line. Either adapt or get out of my way." The dome doors burst as the first wave of drones poured in. The battle was chaos. Screams, sparks, metal tearing into stone. But where the cadets faltered, Arin's cubs cut paths through the enemy, their instincts honed not into wild frenzy, but coordinated strikes under Arin's crisp commands. "Nix, flank left. Drive them into Sol's guard. Fenrir, cut their retreat. Circle wide." The cubs moved like extensions of his will, deadly precision cloaked in terrifying grace. And the cadets, inspired, matched the rhythm, filling in the gaps. Together, they pushed back the incursion. Minutes stretched like hours, but eventually silence fell. The last drone twitched, sparking, then went still. The dome was a wreck. Scorch marks scarred the walls, and half the seating lay in ruin, but the cadets still stood. And at their center, bloodied but unbowed, was Arin, with his predators calmly returning to his side, as though they hadn't just saved the academy. The overseer slumped into his chair, trembling. His authority, his rules, all torn apart in minutes. He looked up at Arin, eyes narrow with both fear and reluctant awe. "You disobeyed direct instructions," he said, voice hollow. Arin met his gaze. "No. I followed the spirit of them. You wanted companions who could stand by us in war, protect us when everything else failed. These cubs just proved themselves more than pets. They're partners. Family." Silence. Then, unexpectedly, a cadet raised a fist to their chest. Another followed, and another. Soon, the dome filled with the sound of fists against armor, an unspoken salute. The overseer's frills flattened. He couldn't argue against proof. His gaze swept the cadets, then dropped. So be it. The human passes. But it was more than passing. Everyone in the dome knew it. Word of this battle would spread beyond the academy, into the fleets, into the council itself. Whispers had already begun. The human brought predators. The predators fought for him. And for us. Arin knelt, running a hand through Fenrir's fur. Nyx's sleek coat, Sol's thick ruff. His voice was soft, but the cadets closest still heard. They'll learn soon enough. It was never about harmlessness. It was about trust. And if you earn that with a praise, Dator? His eyes lifted to the ruined dome, the gathered cadets, the broken overseer. You earn it forever. The cubs leaned into him, 3 apex predators smiling in ways no alien could ever understand. And in that ruined dome, a legend was born. The human who tamed death itself and called it friend.